kind of economy we want to have as a region. We talked about the little breaking news. We have Patrick Risch from Webster University, a leading expert in sports economics. Let's get right to this breaking news we're talking about. Stop me when I'm wrong, because this is developing as we speak, but a holding company tied to the owner of the St. Louis Rams, who has been talking about, it's been rumored that the team could potentially move. This holding company has purchased a stadium-sized piece of land in Los Angeles. Does that sound right so far? And what does that all mean?
I would not want to play poker with Stan Kroenke, because I think he'd whoop me.
This is the owner of the Rams.
This is the owner of the Rams. I think this is a tremendous play on his part. And I will also say that anybody that studies communication, it's a great time to lay this news out when everyone's focused on the Super Bowl, right? Just kind of sneak this in. I've said prior to this news coming out, several people have asked me about this over the last 2 or 3 years, that even though they have this deal in the lease where they could get out of the lease if the stadium was not in the top 25%, and I would argue it's probably in the bottom 25%.
And before we go over anybody's head, we're talking about the St. Louis Rams. They play football in the Edward Jones Dome, and their contract says if their stadium isn't in the top 25% of the league, they can walk away and go play somewhere else.
That's right. And I've always said, even though that's there, you have to have a viable place to go to. And where are you going to go to? Well, Los Angeles was the prime candidate, but the problem there is they have not been able to get their stuff together in terms of building a new facility, because the NFL does not want to go to a city that's not going to build something new. So there's one option that's been somewhat thrown to the wayside for the last couple of months, because their efforts, AEG, the company that Tim Lewicki, former St. Louisan, that was in charge of at one point, they were trying to get a deal done, it fell through. London, Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, has been very adamant about trying to expand the international reach.
Our Rams have played in London.
Our Rams have played there, and Stan Kroenke owns Arsenal, which is a team, for those people that aren't interested in soccer, they're a team in the EPL, the English Premier League. But again, a lot of people think that logistically that may not make sense to have a team full-time in London. But with this developing news, Casey, I really believe that this is going to make the St. Louis Rams, the city, looking at this deal, all of a sudden it changes the tenor of the entire discussion. Now again, it could just be a ploy to try to get more money out of St. Louis City, but I look at it this way. The St. Louis Cardinals, who are the team of St. Louis, when they built their stadium in 2006, 85 to 90% of that was financed with their own money. So if the darling of St. Louis sports, with all apologies to the Blues and the Rams, if the darling of St. Louis sports only got 10% in public money, what are the Rams going to get?
Okay, so let's back up and say, why does all of this matter? What does a sports team, what do sports teams mean to a city? We hear a term tossed around oftentimes about being a top-tier city. Right. How do pro sports play into that?
Well, first of all, you've got to separate what that means when you say a top-tier city versus the economic benefits that a team brings to a region. I was thinking just before we came on, you think of other cities in the Midwest that don't have professional sports, like the Omahas, the Louisvilles of the world. They don't register as being on the same level because professional sports have such high ratings. Certainly football, baseball, hockey lags behind, but even those ratings can be good compared to other programming. It brings eyeballs to your city. When they come in and out of telecasts, they're showing beauty shots of Forest Park, of the Arch, of other parts of the community. So this is beneficial in that respect.
Is it just for our pride, or does it translate into something real?
Part of it is civic pride. Part of it can be economic benefits. Now, as an economist, when you're measuring economic impacts, and I've got to say, I had to laugh earlier before I came on tonight. I hear reports of the Super Bowl in New York generating an economic impact of $500 or $600 million. I've done studies for 2 separate Super Bowls. Those numbers that they're reporting for this year are just out of control. Economic impact is what kind of money is coming into the region from outside. And in some respects, sometimes teams may inflate those numbers because a lot of the people that are going to the sporting events are coming from the metropolitan statistical area. It's not new money. Now, I will say this. When people come from St. Charles or they come from Florissant or other parts of the suburbia into downtown St. Louis, that does benefit downtown restaurants. It does benefit the city of St. Louis. So in that sense, it's impact.
But there are empty theaters on the World Series game night outside of downtown. There are empty restaurants.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, so back to this top tier idea. Can you be top tier without a football team, for instance? Let's say they turn this stadium-sized piece of land into a stadium and our team walks.
You're not as viable. You're not as big time, if you will, because the NFL has the best ratings. They have the greatest ratings. It has become America's pastime. Baseball's time as pastime is past, if that makes any sense.
I think I follow the idea.
So, I believe that, as I was mentioning earlier to someone, in baseball you've got 3 strikes and you're out. If we lose the Rams, that'll be 2 times, and that'll be it.
And speaking of that, people are already saying on Twitter, this isn't even really our team. This is LA's team, and they're here. Do they have the roots of our St. Louis Cardinals? Or are they our hometown team?
No, absolutely not. And I don't know if that's the reason why, again, LA is being considered by Mr. Kroenke. Obviously, you've got some ties out there to the old LA Rams, but again, one of the things that could help St. Louis keep this team is he's not going to get much public money from Los Angeles either, because that was one of the issues before when AEG was planning on building a stadium. They were going to do it with their own money. But again, even if he has to build it himself out there, he's going to be able to generate more revenue from corporate Los Angeles versus corporate St. Louis. And again, because of the market size, he's going to be able to see a greater increase in franchise value. I'm sure he's looking at the Dodgers. And granted, baseball's a different model because you can have local TV deals, and that's where the Dodgers are seeing a lot of their wealth as a franchise increase. But again, I just believe that the corporate community here, it's nothing compared to what you'd have in Los Angeles. Now, again, on the flip side, what kind of attendance would they get? There's always a honeymoon effect, so if he moved out there, they'd get good attendance for a year or two, but there's so many transplants that live in LA. If the team faltered and they were weak, would those fans keep coming to the stadium?